It's no secret that I love HBO's TV series Rome. One of its highlights for me, and evidently for my viewers, was the announcer character played by Ian McNeice. He was very expressive and entertaining, and I wish we had the news read out to us in this manner in today's world. But this show isn't a documentary, and not everything they depict is certain to have existed. So in this video I'm going to talk about the historical accuracy of his profession, what his colleagues did in ancient Rome, and whether or not his style and signature gestures are based on any historical evidence. So did the announcers like the one in the TV series actually exist? The man we see in the show is Praeco, an ancient Roman town crier. The existence of Praeconium, the office of Praecones, is attested in the works of Cicero and other sources. Praecones were employed for a wide variety of events, from funerals to public games and executions. They helped to keep order in public assemblies and conduct the voting procedures. They also did the job of modern-day auctioneers. In his very first scene in the show, the announcer offers a fine reward for a return of a slave woman. This is something that is attested in the ancient sources. In the play called Mercator, or The Merchant, written by Roman playwright Plautus, a character talks about asking Praecones to shout about a missing person. I couldn't find any mention of Praecones who read out the news of the day, like the character of the show does, but it does not seem implausible. The job of a praeco was not prestigious. Most of them were freed slaves or their descendants. The orators of the senatorial class looked down upon them, because they were selling their voice for money. This is pretty rich coming from someone like Cicero, who regularly accepted gifts and loans for his services as a lawyer. But the hypocrisy of the Roman elite is a whole nother matter. The culture of ancient Rome considered commerce and all the jobs associated with it to be dishonorable occupations. This, however, didn't mean that Praecones couldn't get ahead in life. A praeco in the late Roman Republic could achieve both influence and wealth through the connections in the government and the private sector. From the works of Cicero and Lucilius, we know of very successful praecones like Quintus Granius, who was on the first-name basis with consuls. According to Cicero, Granius gained prominence with his oratorical style, ran an auctioneering business, and made strong connections with prominent senators. A praeco could form these types of connections by being involved in the promotion of public games, sponsored by senior magistrates, or through employment as an auctioneer. Land auctions, for example, were very popular and very lucrative business endeavors in the late Roman Republic. At the time of Caesar, some of the praecones were becoming so rich and influential that the dictator issued an edict explicitly barring them from holding civic magistracies. But this discrimination did not severely affect the material well-being of praecones. Archaeologists in Italy have dug out the Schola Praeconum, a clubhouse for the members of the profession. Based on the inscriptions and frescoes from this building, we can say that it was a rather posh establishment. Members of different professions in ancient Rome formed associations, or collegia. A lot of influence and wealth of the Collegium Praeconum came from mediation of affairs between different guilds of artisans and craftsmen and the general public, or the elite. By conducting the auctions and, yes, reading out advertisements, praecones helped to distribute the wares of textile manufacturers, winers, and, of course, the Guild of Millers.
True Roman bread for true Romans.
Due to its important role, the profession survived all of the turmoil of the imperial period. The town criers were ubiquitous urban figures in both the Latin West and the Greek East well into the 6th century. So I think with this we can firmly establish that the character of the show and what he does is based on firm historical evidence. Now let's talk about the way he does it. Probably the most memorable aspect of the show's praeco character are his hand gestures. The oratorical practice of gesticulation, or chironomia, is something that is well known to anyone who ever watched a political debate. For the modern Italians, it is practically a part of their language. Their ancestors, ancient Romans, had a whole science around this practice. We know about it primarily through works of two prominent orators. Cicero, who doesn't need an introduction, and Marcus Fabius Quintilianus. Quintilian, as the latter is usually referred to, was a Roman educator and rhetorician from Hispania, who lived in the 1st century AD. His Institutio Oratoria is a classical textbook for the theory and practice of rhetoric. Despite it being written in 95 AD, it teaches the same oratorical style that was used more than 100 years before. While Cicero gives more general guidelines on what type of gestures should be employed by the orator, Quintilian goes into a lot of specifics. He has a whole chapter with detailed descriptions of different gestures. TV show writers and creators certainly relied heavily on Quintilian's textbook. In the very first scene in the Senate, we see Cicero follow some of the same instructions. First, his thumb and the next 3 fingers are gently converged, and the hand is carried to the neighborhood of the chest. This, as Quintilian writes, is a gesture for timid and subdued exordium, or a beginning of the speech. This is a position that the real-world Cicero actually used. Then the show Cicero draws the hand in towards the body and opens it somewhat more rapidly in the opposite direction, so that it seems as though he was delivering his words to the audience. After that, he clenches his fist to the chest and culminates his speech with the denunciation of Pompey's position, accompanied by intensive downward pointing of the index finger. As you can see, every single one of his gestures and motions is referenced in Institutio Oratoria. The newsreader character also follows Quintilian, although not as strictly as Cicero does. He performs a variety of gestures in his scenes. One of his favorites is placing the middle finger against the thumb and extending the remaining 3. He uses it on multiple occasions. When stating that Caesar is severely outnumbered, when announcing the names of the generals sent to fight Mark Antony, and when he introduces King Herod. Quintilian says that this hand gesture accompanied with a firm motion is suitable for the statements of facts, so it is perfectly fitting in those scenes. Another gesture which Quintilian devises for this purpose is what can be described as the OK sign. Show announcer is fond of using it when talking about grants and rewards. Admittedly, he takes some artistic license. Some instructions are exaggerated, like when he brings his palm to his chin, then turns it downward and brings forward. Canonically, it should be a relaxed motion, but the actor makes it look like sign language. There is one time when he uses the sign of the horns and talks about blind virgins. It is a rather strange occurrence, since this is a traditional Italian sign to ward off evil. In fact, we see it used in this context by the daughter of Varenus when she holds it behind her back. It is probably a simple mistake on the actor's part, because I don't know why someone would want to ward off blind virgins. His signature hand-waving motions also have basis in the oratory textbooks, but are exaggerated for showmanship. All of these alterations from the classical oratory guidebooks are, in my opinion, justified. Praecones were not senators or lawyers. Their job was to draw attention of the crowd. A man who is not a professional orator, but has some bits of rhetorical education and expounds upon them for his job as a town crier, makes perfect sense in the setting of the late Roman Republic. Ultimately, the job of a praeco was to draw attention, and what kind of gestures he used for it didn't really matter. Sure, some stuffy classically trained orator may have scoffed at the lack of proper form, but the common onlookers, such as myself, would have been captivated and would be listening intently. And isn't this the definition of success for this job? I hope you liked the video and learned something new. If you have any questions on the topic, be sure to ask them in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching till the end, and I will see you in the next one.